What does it cost to sue someone? There's no real answer to this question, but we're going to give it a try. I'm Mark Lyda from Lyda Law Firm. Let's get started. The reason there's no one answer to this question is because there are all different types of lawsuits, and lawsuits resolve at all different stages. So I can't say that a lawsuit typically costs X number of dollars because there are all sorts of variables involved. Let's talk through the variables. One is, where are you? In big cities, lawyers typically cost more. What is your type of dispute? If it's a complex commercial business-to-business lawsuit, that's typically more expensive than like a car accident lawsuit. What court is the lawsuit in? Are you in state court, federal court? Are you doing an arbitration, which is like a private lawsuit? Those things also affect your costs. Typically, the bigger the court you're in and the bigger your lawsuit, the more expensive it's going to be, obviously. Now, the really big variable that is present no matter where you are has to do with when the lawsuit resolves. So most lawsuits settle out of court. You don't ever get to trial. You go through a whole process before you get to the trial. And at some point during that lawsuit, you will likely settle. The million-dollar question is, when do you settle? Or do you settle at all? Do you take it all the way to trial? That's the most expensive option. Or do you settle right at day one, maybe before the lawsuit's filed? Just when you have a dispute, you just settle. That's obviously the cheapest way to go in terms of legal fees. But it's very common that the answer is somewhere in the middle. So often lawsuits settle even without a mediation. Just in the early stages, the lawyers for each side will get together and maybe they'll argue a little bit and they'll each say, my case is really strong and yours is weak. Why don't we work something out just to avoid legal fees for our clients? And then they kind of butt heads for a little while and they work something out. It's very common for lawsuits to resolve that way. And it's usually pretty good for clients as long as you can reach a fair deal because you don't have to pay a lot in legal fees. Now, sometimes you'll have to go all the way through discovery before you reach a settlement. We described the discovery process in other videos in this playlist, but it can be a very expensive process of learning what the other side has, sifting through all the evidence, taking depositions, etc. And if you go through that whole stage before you reach a settlement, you might not go to trial, but you still paid a lot in legal fees, sometimes tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. Often lawsuits resolve somewhere in the middle of that discovery process. So the really big variable in answering the question of how much a lawsuit will cost is, when are you going to resolve the lawsuit? Are you going to take it all the way through trial, or are you going to resolve early, or are you going to resolve what they call on the courthouse steps right before trial? Just to give you a ballpark, I will say that lawsuits cost tens of thousands of dollars. I don't know if I've seen a lawsuit go all the way without costing less than that. Lawsuits can cost millions of dollars if you're involved in a huge commercial business-to-business dispute. But if you're an individual or a small business owner, I think you've got to think of a lawsuit as a tens of thousands of dollars type of proposition. But again, it depends on the size of the lawsuit, where you are, and most importantly, when you resolve it. So all of this is about attorney's fees and how much you're going to have to pay, probably tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars in attorney's fees. But there are other costs in a lawsuit. One is expert witness fees. Many trials, especially business-to-business commercial trials or trials involving, like products liability, personal injury, car accidents, all of those types of trials usually have expert witnesses. And those experts can be even more expensive than lawyers per hour. So that's a major fee that would come out of your pocket that you need to think about when you're also thinking about when to resolve the lawsuit. do we want to resolve this before we have to pay an expert? Or do you think the expert report is going to be so good that it'll help you get a better settlement? There are also court fees, service of process fees. You have to pay the transcriptionist if you do depositions, and those can sometimes be thousands of dollars. And if you go to mediation, you have to pay the mediator, and those can sometimes be thousands of dollars. So legal fees, court costs, and all of those extra fees really add up the longer you stay in the lawsuit. So the main variable, whether it's legal fees or court costs, is when do you resolve the lawsuit? How soon do you get it done? Thanks for watching. Please remember to click like and subscribe to help keep legal education accessible for small business owners.